Well, yes, welcome everyone to GeoHug. So before we kick off today's session, I'd just like to take this time to acknowledge the traditional lands which we're all coming from today. I live on the beautiful lands of the Gadigal, of the people of the Aurora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and future. And I am so excited to have Lucy McClean and Russell Meares joining us today. I'm the biggest super fan of these two rock stars who have always been amazing mentors and support to me. And I'm so excited to have them back here on GeoHug to discuss some really important things with us today. So we all lead busy lives and it's important to pause and take time to check on yourself. So it's going to be amazing to have them speak to us today about looking after your other rocks and talking health with us geohuggers. So it's going to be a great session. I hope you all take some great valuable insights from this. Please use the chat. We'll open up the floor at the end. And yeah, thank you so much to both of you for coming. I'm really grateful to have you here.
So thank you so much, Jess. It is, as always, such a pleasure to be here with you and the great GeoHug community. Let's share our screen, shall we? And we can get started. Okay, does that make sense? Looking good? Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Okay. Well, look, before we begin, I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners. I'm coming to you from Guringai country and offer my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And of course, Russell and I are no strangers to the great GeoHug community. It is fantastic to be with you and to take some time out to discuss our health and what some of those important health issues for all of us geohuggers. So what we'd like to go through today is talk about health because I know it's tricky for a geologist to accept, but really it's just as important as talking about rocks. We're going to discuss three important parts of health and other rocks, as Russell's already alluded to. We wanted to go into prostate cancer, breast cancer, and of course our mental rocks, mental health. And of course the important reminder to please go and look after yourself and your geohuggers and your team. Look, we are going to be discussing some challenging matters today, and look, we've put this great photo with the beautiful sea on the background there. If ever you need to look after other rocks, please feel free to check out that gorgeous part on most of the slides that we have today. So let's get right into it and consider some of the health issues. So look, as we mentioned, we wanted to talk about some of those important cancers. Look, for many of us who've spent time in the fields, the first thing we'll think of is melanoma. And you can see that that is one of the most numerous of the diagnoses of cancer estimated for 2022. But look, you'll also see there that prostate cancer is the highest cancer, with breast cancer coming in a close second, and it's those that we wanted to focus on today. So look, those two may be the highest diagnoses of cancer, but you'll see there they're coming in for men and women at number 5 for the cause of death. So look, obviously it's they're both cancers that are highly diagnosed, but the great news is that don't lead to death quite as directly as some of those other forms. You'll note there, of course, it is dementia and coronary disease in the 1-2. Interestingly, dementia is higher for women. Yes, there's possibly some reasons for that. We do have to manage the men in our lives, but you'll see. Had to include that one. I won't. Should we tell? And it was actually, can we mention that came from Russell's wife? But you'll also see, of course, lung cancer and cerebrovascular disease are incredibly important. Okay, so look, let's go over to prostate cancer, and this is Russell, where I hand over to you.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Jess, for hosting this session. So let's talk about our favourite pet rocks. Our favourite pet rocks for us guys. We're going to be talking about prostate cancer. Next slide, thanks. So here's a picture of prostate cancer. This is the basics of prostate cancer I'll go through. So the picture on the right, you can see the bladder in the centre there, sort of like a smiling face at you. There's the bladder, and from that, the urethra, the little tube that takes the urine out of the body, runs down. That runs through the prostate, right through the middle of the prostate, which can create a few problems later on. Now, the prostate itself is the male reproductive system, or part of that system, which creates semen. And it's generally the size of a walnut if you're 25 years old, but as you get older, it can grow to the size of a lemon. And as that prostate grows larger in age, it can actually constrict the urethra. So one of the complications to do with the prostate is the fact that it limits flow of urine, and that can be one of the many symptoms of prostate cancer. But the much more important one we want to talk about today is prostate cancer. That's where the prostate actually develops cancer. And as you saw from the figures that Lucy put up, that's the most common cancer in terms of diagnosis, not in deaths, but in terms of diagnoses. So 1 in 5 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer during their lives. Many men die, not many men die of prostate cancer, but many men will carry it through till when they die. It'll be on their bodies when they die. And so 1 in 5 is diagnosed and 1 in 35 will die. So let's look at the figures for monitoring. Monitoring prostate cancer is generally done in 2 ways. The first way is with a PSA test. And my message today to all men is to get a PSA blood test during your annual blood test if you turn 50. If you've got a family history of prostate cancer, for example, if your father or brother had prostate cancer, you have double that chance of getting prostate cancer. So you should start being tested for PSA at 40. But if 2 of your immediate relatives, say 2 brothers or a brother and a father, have prostate cancer, well, then your risk is increased to 5 times. So if you look at, you've got 5 times the risk, and 1 in 5 is going to be diagnosed, and there's almost 100% chance statistically that you will get prostate cancer. So over 40, family history, get tested with PSA each year. If over 40, if you're over 50, get it done each year. That's very important. Now, the other way prostate cancer can sometimes be detected, but not very commonly, is through the notorious digital rectal examination. That's where your smiling doctor puts on a rubber glove, pokes a finger up your backside, and you can see the backside, the rectum is very close to the prostate, and they can feel across and see if your prostate is enlarged. But many, many men with prostate cancer do not have enlarged prostates. So you've got to be aware of that. So PSA is the key way to go. Now, the symptoms of prostate cancer can be quite mysterious. Many, many men don't have any symptoms at all of the prostate cancer itself until they start developing other problems with their body. And that means that the cancer has spread outside the prostate into other organs, maybe the lungs or the liver or even your bones. And that's called stage 4. So if prostate cancer is within the prostate only, that's stage 3. If it spreads at stage 4. But as I say, many men don't have symptoms. And you may not have symptoms, and yet you might have developing prostate cancer. As I mentioned, another symptom is changes in urination, and also, as we said, sudden or rising changes to the PSA. Diagnoses of prostate cancer. So if your GP does PSAs and finds your PSA is rising, or you have other major symptoms, your GP will suggest you go and see a urologist, and the urologist will probably do an MRI scan. And depending on the results of the MRI scan, they may do a biopsy where they take very small core samples, like a little mini drill, biopsy samples from your prostate and look for cancer in those. If your urologist suspects you might have spread of cancer out of your prostate already, they could well do a PET scan or CT scan of your whole body, particularly a PET scan of your body and a CT scan of your brain to look if the prostate cancer is spread out of bounds. Now, the treatment of prostate cancer has changed quite a lot. Back 20 years ago or so, watchful waiting, which is just monitoring with PSA tests, was only conducted about 50% of cases. The other 50%, they did more radical treatments, such as radiotherapy with radioisotopes, which actually can now target specific prostate cancer cells within your body to micromillimeters. That's moved a long way in research. Another way is surgery, which is open surgery or laparoscopic surgery on robotics. Open surgery is called radical prostatectomy. And then finally, there's hormone therapy. Hormone therapy is used if cancer has spread outside your prostate. The hormone therapy basically is to turn off your development of testosterone, because testosterone is one of the triggers of potentially prostate cancer. So I've got a little case study for you. It's 2 guys called Charlie and Frank. I know them both very well. They're both friends of mine. And they both were diagnosed with prostate cancer. So let's see what happened next to them. So Charlie went along to see his GP every year, and he had regular PSA results. And here's Charlie's PSA results. So you can see the PSA on the left-hand side. So in April 99, February 2000, it's about 3.5. If a PSA is 3, that's when GPs start to get interested in what's happening in your prostate, and they'll continue to do PSA tests until they see major changes. But they start looking if it's above 3. So Charlie's went 3.5, 3.5, went to 4, then it jumped up to 6 and 6.5. So once it got to 6, they did a biopsy, and his prostate was clear of any sort of cancer from the biopsy. In June 2003, did another PSA, and it jumped up to 8, quite a big jump. Another biopsy, and that biopsy showed prostate cancer in the prostate. So a decision was made to, and it was quite advanced. He had a very high Gleason score, which is a score urologists use when they add 2 scores out of 5 together, depending what they see in the biopsy, out of 10. And Charlie's result was 7. So it was time to do something radical. They couldn't wait for radiotherapy to work. So they went straight away and did a radical prostatectomy and removed his prostate. And they did a PSA test shortly after that, and it was 0. So Charlie had a very good result. He's in good health, and I see him every day. Okay, let's look at Frank. Oh, shit. What's happened to Frank? Frank's died. Poor old Frank. Frank never had a PSA in his life. Frank, over time, got sicker and sicker, and he had aches in his bones, and other organs weren't working. So by the time it came to look for prostate in his body, he had it right through his body, and he died. So that's a really sorry story about Frank. So a big contrast. You want to be a Charlie, not a Frank, when it comes to the prostate cancer story. So just moving right along, Lucy. So I am Charlie. Charlie is me. So that is my PSA results. And it's been a great story, a great example of early monitoring with PSA, early detection through the biopsy, and then early cure through the radical prostatectomy. And I've never had a PSA above 0.01 since 2003, 20 years. And it's the only analytical results I look at where I want to see a value at detection or less. It's good news. So next slide, Lucy. So after that, in fact, I'll go to this slide. This is actually interesting. This is my real dissection of my prostate. They took it out of my body and they sliced it up like a loaf of sliced bread. So on the bottom left there, you can see a thing that looks like a strawberry. That's my prostate. They took slices through it. With that little diagram to the right, as I say. And these are the 6 slices they took through my prostate. Now, there's 2 things to point out here. The first is in the 3rd and 4th, you can see those coloured in black areas. That's where they found the prostate in my prostate cancer in my prostate. It's a little bit in 5, a little bit in 6. But the good news is it didn't spread beyond the margins of the prostate. When they take the prostate out, they always are looking to see if it's spread. If it's gone beyond the margins, it could be anywhere else in your body. Mine was contained. But the other interesting thing to look at as geologists and explorers is about 90% of that prostate has no cancer in it. So probably my first biopsy in 2002 was clear, maybe because those little drill holes missed the cancer. They hit other parts of the prostate, but not the cancer, just like drilling an ore body, and you're missing the ore body with your drill holes. So that's the good news out of my prostate story. So there's more good news the next year, 2004, thanks, Lucy. So in 2004, my wife and I climbed to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, nearly 6,000 meters. It was the high point of my life. It proved to me that after prostate cancer, you can do a lot of stuff. And I've done that over the last 20 years. And in our hands, we're holding a Prostate Cancer Foundation of Australia little logo and sign. And a number of friends supported me on that climb. And we raised $6,000 for prostate cancer research. So it was a big incentive to get to the top. And it was the high point of my life, I can tell you. So that's prostate cancer. My message is, let's get a PSA test done. Thank you, Lucy.
So thanks so much, Russell, and let's now move on to breast cancer. So look, everybody knows what breasts are, and you'll see there the pink ribbon on that photo is, of course, the symbol for breast cancer, just as the blue ribbon is the symbol for prostate cancer. Look, you may well have heard the common statistic that, as we've already discussed, breast cancer is the most common in women, and it impacts 1 in 8 women across their lives. But look, just a reminder, it's not just women, it's certainly men. It's more like 1 in 668, in fact, in men, but also, of course, it impacts transgender, gender diverse, and especially those on hormone treatments. So look, on the slides, and in fact, through the slide pack, there's quite a few great references, websites, if you would like to find out more information on breast cancer. So then looking at breast cancer incidence by age, and you'll see there that it certainly does impact over 80% diagnoses for women over 50. But look, a reminder, and having a look on that graph, it goes right down to teenage women. And in fact, a friend's teenage daughter had a lumpectomy. So look, it really does impact everybody. And so look, it's really important to watch out for those warning signs. So monitoring for breast check, I guess first and foremost, absolutely, is that self-check that I'm hoping all women have heard about. So it's that every month we should all choose a date in each month is to simply, as McGrath Foundation says, look, feel and learn each month. So it's simply looking at your breasts in preferably either standing up or lying down. It's a very quick, 2-minute process, but literally can save your life. The other methods of monitoring are, of course, mammograms and ultrasounds. They're offered routinely every 2 years for women over 40 and over 50 by invitation. You start getting lovely letters from the government. And a reminder, just like prostate cancer, that, of course, breast cancer is more prevalent if you have a family history, that your risk does increase. So the symptoms to look for are pretty much anything that's different. So it could be new lumps and bumps, it could be red, it could be rashes, it could be discharges, it could be changes. Pretty much anything different with your breast or your nipple is something to really take note of. So the diagnosis is the mammogram. For those of you who haven't had the pleasure, a photo of the mammogram is there on the screen. It is, as I'm sure you've heard, literally 2 plates in an x-ray squashing together your breast. They take different angles. Yes, it is painful. Yes, it is unpleasant, but absolutely it is worth doing. So that's a mammogram. Often that is followed up by an ultrasound, which is simply just that scan of your breast with that lovely warm gel, especially important for women who have lumpy breasts naturally or cysts. And again, it's all done by a doctor's diagnosis, by a doctor's referral. And look, then if there are issues, then regularly the doctors would recommend a biopsy. So, as Russell was just discussing, for women, it is simply either a needle biopsy or a core biopsy, dare I say, a little bit like diamond drilling, and to take out a sample. So, look, that's certainly the usual next stage. There are, of course, other genetic testing and other scans that can then also be undertaken. So following that, treatments do, of course, generally first include or can first include a lumpectomy, which is literally where a surgeon under general anaesthetic will, of course, take out effectively the infected lump, so to speak. Can include also lymph nodes. And then others, again, completely depending on the diagnosis, it can be a mastectomy. So that's removal of one side of the breast, or a double mastectomy is both sides. That can also be require chemotherapy, directed radiotherapy, and then, of course, reconstruction is also common. There are also new hormone treatments. There's a whole vast array of treatments now available. So let's now go into our case study. So this is the story of what happened to 2 girls who had issues with their breasts and what happened to them next, taking a leaf out of Russell's book. But look, first and foremost, it was me. I found lumps or changes in my breast a couple of years ago. And look, to be honest, first of all, I put my head in the sand. I didn't want to have to deal with it. My mother had breast cancer. My grandmother died of it. And it wasn't, in fact, until talking to a friend and colleague, and she said, Lucy, just go and check it out. So, of course, I did, followed her great advice, went to the GP, referred to a specialist, had the mammogram, the ultrasound, biopsy. Yes, all very unpleasant, all very worrying, but look, fortunately, my issue was simply a collapsed cyst. And of course, as women's breasts get older, these things happen. So look, that was a great outcome. And of course, a reminder to me to take better care and to make sure I have those regular checks. Look, another dear friend also found lumps. This is many years ago when we both had, I think our daughters were 8 years old. But look, she then had further issues and in fact needed a double mastectomy. She needed that. She then had radiotherapy. She had chemotherapy. A couple of years after, she had reconstructive surgery. But now 14 years later, she is bouncing, the fittest, most vital person you've ever met. So look, they're two great outcomes from breast issues and breast cancer. And just a reminder that it really is such an important topic for us all. So look, we also thought we'd include some information here about caring for our carers. And look, the topics of this presentation really only came up recently when, in fact, my husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer and I was going through this. And it reminded me of how exhausting and isolating and how many issues there are for carers. And it's an important thing for us all to consider when we know that friends and colleagues are caring for somebody going through something like cancer or some other key issue. So, of course, it's really common to experience issues with isolation, with adjustment of diagnoses, and that really difficult time in the treatments and diagnoses can be very worrying. Complicated family dynamics are pretty much guaranteed in these kind of situations. I find, the grief and the fatigue and the worry, it's all part and parcel. And look, all of that really leads us nicely into mental health. Those are the really important rocks we all need to look at. So look, by definition, mental health is simply a state of well-being that allows you to deal with what life throws at you. And look, the stats there are that almost half of Australian adults will face mental health issues at some time. So that can be feeling low, feeling depressed, anxiety, affective orders, and can also, of course, come through in substance abuse or disorders. So look, it's an incredibly prevalent issue, and yeah, tragically, really increasing, as we have all heard about. The signs, of course, it's a variety of signs and symptoms that can be short, they can be long-term, and they can indeed be life-threatening. Look on the screen there, just as with the previous issues, you'll see there's some great websites and phone links. So first of all, it's Lifeline, that I'm sure we've all heard about, and Beyond Blue. Both have 24/7 phone service, but also importantly, they've got websites with a wealth of information. But look, the other one you might not have heard of is Mates in Mining. Mates in Mining is an organisation just for us. It was set up as a subsidiary of Mates in Construction because of the tragic prevalence of suicide, especially in the male-dominated workforces of construction and suicide. So Mates in Mining offer that phone service, but they also have courses that are provided at workplaces. And in fact, we've had a previous geohug from Mates in Mining, which is definitely worth another look at. But look at, and again, a fantastic opportunity and support for us all. So look, the key message for mental health is that, in fact, if you feel worried or anxious or depressed or down, do seek help. So look, there's online support, there's phone support, there's professional supports. Going straight to your doctor, your GP is a great first start. They have a wealth of services and options now available. There's counsellors, there's psychologists, there's psychiatrists. But there's also, importantly, our great geohug community. And look, as I'd have to say was said when I recently went to a service of somebody who suicided, that everybody in this room, everybody in this great geohug community has somebody they can call. And look, we really hope that everybody has someone they can reach out to in those times of need. So look, now moving on to really that message of looking after you and yours. And of course, that's not, that's friends, but it's also your team, your company, your staff, your workmates, your geohuggers. So the key steps that Are You OK Day promotes are really smart, and they're just this. First of all is ask. So, I guess, we can ask the classic question, are you okay? But you can also ask it in different ways. And look, it's really important, especially if you see that there's a friend or a colleague or an acquaintance who is a bit more withdrawn, who's, not quite as cheery, not their normal self. It's really important. And sometimes the direct question can be too much. Maybe it's a good time to suggest you go for a coffee, for a walk, for a drive, go and have a look at some core. That can be a good time that you can have that discussion where you're not necessarily facing each other, as they say with teenagers, but, focused on something else, but to really bring up these issues. And in fact, just recently I was chatting with a work colleague, and, there was just a few indications in our conversation. And in fact, yes, it did actually eventuate that she's going through some real issues. And it was only through that kind of prodding and the extension of the conversation that we got on to what was really worrying her. So the second most important point there is listen. We're all trying to multitask and rush and have a phone call and another web meeting. But look, this stuff's important. So we really do recommend that you take the time to listen. The next step there is, of course, encouraging action. Don't be like me, put your head in the sand, but do take action and seek help, because, the not knowing is incredibly worrying. And then, of course, as a friend and colleague, it's great to check back in, with all of these processes. There are hard days when people are going for medical appointments, they're waiting for tests, they're going admitted to hospital. They're a great time to check in with friends and colleagues. So look, in your workplace, the key message there about caring for your team, but also importantly showing leadership. So look, for those of us in leadership, it's important that we model some of those important caring and supportive behaviours. So that's being open for caring for your team, and also personally seeking help, showing that you take leave, you'll take some sick leave when you need it. Importantly, that extends to company cultures and support. Many companies have employee assistance programs which offer a multitude of support. Many have health fund or gym memberships or mental health support or vaccination support. All of these kind of opportunities should be available for many employees. And of course, there on the list there is Mates in Mining that we've already gone through, who again have training, support, and another great websites for you to look up. So look, finally, just a reminder that, we really do encourage you to take those steps, to ask, to listen, to encourage action, to check in, and to care for yourself, your team, your colleagues, and your geohuggers, just as you would your most precious rocks and assets. And also, the next point there is, of course, to take action. And of course, we're talking to everyone to get regular checks and, of course, go to the professionals. And then, of course, the cheery photo of Russell and I that Russell assured me we had to include, because really this talk, as I might have mentioned, was really only promoted when I had a general cheery email from Russell. He sends me great regular holiday updates as I'm beavering away. I think this one was from Whistler, and my reply was, well, my news isn't quite as cheery, when I told him about my husband's prostate cancer. And it was only then that I found out that, in fact, Russell, who I've known and worked with for years, decades, had prostate cancer. And of course, he had no idea that I'd gone through a breast cancer scare a couple of years ago. So look, we really do encourage you all to talk more about your health and to support each other as we go through life together, so that we can all work and be around to find that next mine. Thanks so much, Jess. Back to you.
Thank you. I feel really teary because it was just really cool that you were both so vulnerable. So thank you for doing that and talking to everyone. Yeah, I don't know. That was beautiful. So thank you.